So my name is Kelly Chen. I consider myself a Bay Area native. I grew up in Fremont, and I'm a genetic counselor. And technically, I guess my title is perinatal genetic counselor, so I focus on patients who are pregnant or thinking about pregnancy.
So walk us through, what is it like? I mean, what kind of patient comes to you, and how does the workflow process work when they seek out a genetic counselor?
Okay. So the workflow for a perinatal genetic counselor, and perinatal is actually kind of a new phrase we created at where I work. Traditionally, the word has been prenatal, so before birth, and then there's postnatal. And now that we're doing so much intervention before birth that affects after birth, we use the combination of perinatal. So most of the patients that I see are pregnant, actively pregnant, and thinking about doing some testing to check for either genetic conditions or birth defects. Sometimes we see patients before they get pregnant, but they know they want to have children and know that they might be at risk for a certain condition. So our appointments are they're like office consultations.
Mm-hmm.
We do a little prep work. We might contact them on the phone and get a little family history or medical history. And then our meeting with them is probably about 40 to 60 minutes long. And then afterwards, if we've ordered testing or there's other appointments to make, we'll follow up and help patients with that.
Now, I'm really curious about the testing. So do patients come to you and say, I want to know what's in my genes and what I pass on, and you guys do a test for them?
Yeah, so I think our patients are a little biased. I mean, I'm sure it seems like there are certainly patients out there who would say, or people out there who would say they don't want to know their genetic status. And those patients we never end up seeing because they would just decline an appointment with us. So those that we do see definitely are interested in some kind of genetic information, whether it's for themselves or primarily for their pregnancy or for their future child. So sometimes there's something specific in the family that we're looking for. We've had some patients just say, test me for everything, I want to know everything. And we have to explain the science and technology is not quite there yet. And so we're trying to pinpoint what can we offer you, accurate testing, specific testing, something that would be helpful too. So a lot of what I do is, I think of it as a consultation, but also just providing information. I see us as a link between physicians and patients. That traditionally doctors order tests that are fairly straightforward, like a blood count or a blood type or something like that. And they can easily tell a patient what that means in a sentence. With this genetic testing, it's much more complicated than that. It's not always a straightforward yes or no, and doctors don't have time to spend with patients explaining that. And so I see us as a bridge between that, being able to help patients decipher and interpret this information, and then also helping them make decisions based on those results. Because a lot of decisions to be made, especially in pregnancy, are not always medical decisions. They're personal decisions about what patients want to do, about information about their future offspring. So prenatal specifically is an interesting ethical realm because we're also dealing with pregnancy and termination.
What's the most difficult aspect of that, if I can ask? Is it patients actually, deciding about, continuing the pregnancy versus not? Are there significant traits that they have to deal with? I'm looking for some kind of idea when it does get gray, as far as like the difficult part of the job.
Yeah. So you bring up a good point. I actually hadn't thought about that before. One of the difficulties in the job in what I do with pregnancy is we're not always, we're certainly talking about genetic testing.
Sure.
Sometimes we're dealing with other kinds of tests in pregnancy like ultrasounds. So a video picture of the baby where you see a physical problem that might be something that suggests a genetic condition like Down syndrome or something else. And seeing the physical problem doesn't guarantee what the outcome is going to be. And so that is one difficulty in prenatal, that you don't have a live person in front of you to say, oh, this person's actually fine. Maybe they have an extra finger or a toe, but they're otherwise healthy. In a pregnancy, you don't have that baby in front of you, and you can't check if there's other things going on. So I think that definitely is one difficult aspect of what I do specifically. And I would just say in general, just dealing with pregnant patients is tough. Pregnancy is a time-limited event. So I feel like of all the subspecialties in genetic counseling, prenatal is usually the most time sensitive. Mm-hmm. We're under deadlines for scheduling appointments, seeing patients, test results, and just the anxiety of the patients themselves. They also have hormone issues to deal with. It's a very emotional time. So it can be quite challenging, but it also can be quite satisfying.
So I'm also curious, is there a common trait or condition that you counsel for the most? Like what are the things that you either end up counseling for, or do people come to you and ask the most? What are they most interested in?
So for my specific specialty in prenatal, by far, I think nationwide, the most common condition that we're talking about is Down syndrome. I was thinking about how I explain why. I think it's a combination of things because the condition is genetic, but it's not inherited. So it would randomly appear, and there would be no other way to tell about it other than to check for it in that pregnancy. And there's a known association with the age of the mom. As women get older, there's a higher chance of Down syndrome. The insurances actually will cover testing for Down syndrome, so that's kind of a supportive step that aids us in seeing patients. It's a common condition. I think about 1 in 800 to 1,000 births for Down syndrome occur. And it can be a long-term disability. Children with Down syndrome grow up into adults. They have intellectual disability. They can have health issues. And so it seems like there's enough interest in that we have this testing. So for my specialty, it's fairly easy. We talk primarily about that and some related conditions. Whereas in other specialties like pediatrics where I used to work, it could be a range of things, a variety of things depending on what a child comes in for us to see. Whether it's a learning problem would make us think about certain conditions versus if it was a physical birth defect, like a heart defect or a cleft lip, that would shift our gear to something else.
What's the most difficult trait you've had to counsel? Is it Down syndrome, or is there another more difficult situation or trait that you've had to, let's say, counsel a family on, or a couple?
I mean, one of my most memorable patient cases had not to do with a prenatal case, but a pediatric case where we were seeing a child, and part of the list of conditions we were thinking about was Tay-Sachs disease. So that one is also a known single gene recessive condition that is common in people of Jewish background. So when we were thinking about that disease, that usually means that the child is coming in with delays and maybe normal development then loss of delays. So it's not like it's a surprise to the family. We would talk to them about this is a possibility. We're going to be ordering tests for this condition. But it's always hard to have to call or contact a family and tell them this is a condition. So I think any kind of test result that confirms a condition that it has high risk for complications or early death, that's never easy to convey.
So do families really have all this information? Like, are you able to build like these massive pedigrees, or do you end up building these sort of more like just maybe 2 or 3 generation pedigrees?
So families vary in how much information they can give us for pedigrees. I see a lot of patients also, I should mention, that come from other countries, specifically Asia, where not much is known about family members. People don't talk about conditions in the family. So and people don't have that many children, so the pedigrees can be very sparse. So just like a circle and a square and circle and a square, and that's it. And then all the way to families who have their whole genealogy trees mapped out with the aid of all these online tools. Right. So they come in with their pedigrees already drawn. So it's really a fun part of our job, but it's also efficient to draw this out instead of trying to describe all these people.
Well, I have a really interesting question to ask for all of our students who might be struggling with pedigrees out there. How do you, as an actual genetic counselor, let's say you're studying a trait, how do you distinguish when you're looking at traits a recessive or dominant trait and put it in context of what you think is going on?
So trying to figure out a trait, whether it's dominant, recessive, or even X-linked, those are the top 3 modes of inheritance that we're looking at. We actually have a term called pedigree analysis. And you know, it's a subjective thing, but it really is looking at the pedigree and going through kind of all the rules of what dominant inheritance looks like, what recessive inheritance looks like. So if you see a trait that happens in a grandparent, a parent, and a child, then that's much more likely to be a dominant trait. If you see a condition where multiple brothers and sisters are affected, and by chance maybe their parents are related to each other, and no one else in the family has a trait, then that's more likely or suggestive of something recessive. And then if you see only boys affected through moms, that could be more X-linked. So the pedigree really does help us try to figure out modes of inheritance.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.